Hello and welcome to a quick get started video. My name is Bill. In this video, we're going to showcase how you can easily integrate with your form with React Hook form. So first thing, let's actually importing the library. So the first hook we're going to use is called user form. And once we got in the form hook, we can actually executing it and getting the register method. And register pretty much is the core API inside the library and allowed us to actually register individual inputs into the hook. So we have two inputs in here, and let's actually quickly register them. So register is a callback function which will return some of the props and inject into your inputs, and hence we can actually pretty much taking control and reading and validating your input. Now that those two inputs been registered, let's try to retrieve the value with handle submit function. So the moment we press the submit, we can actually retrieving the value. So what we can do is attach on submit, handle submit, and it's gonna be accept with a callback. So we can go with reading the data, and the first argument of that callback will be the result. So let's do with Bill Law, and we submit, we got the result back. Voila, really easily to integrate with your form. Now next, let's associate it with input validation against each input. So what we want to do is we want to apply required equal true and required equal true in here. Let's make this as minimum length 4 as well. So let's refresh the page, and if we hit the submit, notice there is no re-render happening at all, and the only thing happened was we actually have the correct focus management, and we actually focus on the right input have an error associated with. And that's because React Hook form taking rendering pretty precise. If you're not actually subscribing to the arrow states, then we will not trigger any re-render. So that's the reason. So let's quickly just subscribing to the arrow states and see what's happening. So we can do with form states, and let's start reading the arrow states, and let's submitting the form again. Now we got another extra re-render happening. We also got associated arrow type and our arrow message. Now talking about arrow message, notice the node didn't return any error message. That's because we only associate with the validation as a booleans and value. What we can do is we can actually supply with a message. So we can do this is required, and we can do the same thing for here. And for minimum length, we can actually providing with a value and also a message. So we can say minimum length is 4. Nice. With that, we actually have a little bit more context associated with every input error message, and we got that in here. Cool. Really sweet and easy API when you want to associate with error message with your input. Now next thing, what if we want to actually apply some default value for your form? Now that's pretty easy. You can actually supply a default values in here, and you can say first name equal Bill and last name equal Law, and just like that, refresh the form, you should be getting the value initiated for your input. Now there is another benefit actually declaring a default value in your form, because at this time, if you're using TypeScript, then we can actually inferring the default value that you declared and doing type check on your behalf. For example, now if I made a typo or made a mistake on your registered input's name, and TypeScript will actually throw a type error saying that this input doesn't exist. So it's highly recommended you to actually provide a default value so you can initiate with all TypeScript type check. And the other beautiful thing is, now that we're providing default values, the TypeScripts can actually associate it with error message as well. So we can go with, actually, let's give it a p tag. So semantically, it's a bit nicer. So we can go with arrows dot and we got first name, and we can do dot again, and autocomplete come up, we can do dot message, and we can do the same for the last name, and just like that, we pretty much done the validation and an error message associated with every input. Now let's quickly just try this out, and then let's make the validation a little bit easier and making them default value as empty string. And if we're submitting the form now, we got focus management right on your input, we got associated input, error message, and we can actually start to actually revalidating those inputs that have associated error message. And as you can see, minimum length equal 4, and the more we type, everything gets corrected. And now we can submit in the form, get the correct value. And if you pay attention on the rendering count, then you can see every render is very precise on when and how to render in React to form. Now, next thing, what if we actually want to subscribe to input value, and we actually want to do a lot of time because, for example, you want to display something that depends on certain input. And what we can do is we can actually using the watch API. Now, by default, as you can see, when you type, React to form doesn't trigger any re-render, but you can actually subscribing to the input by calling the watch function. So we can do with, if we go with watch function with empty arguments, that means we're actually subscribing to the entire form. So kind of behavior like a control form that every keystroke will trigger re-render. However, this is one of the beautiful things. You can actually go in more precise on which input that you want to subscribing to, and we can actually go say, we only want to know about first name. So now when we type on last name, nothing gets triggered, and only on the first name. And we can actually print that on screen as well. So let's go with first name, and let's print that on the screen. Now, this is going to be pretty useful when you have something inside of your render function, and with Watch API, you can optionally subscribe into individual inputs and re-render them accordingly. So one of the really good things about performance as well, so you don't constantly trigger re-render at the root of your application. Cool, I think I'm going to wrap up in here. If you find this is interesting, please check out the API page where you can actually learn more about React to Form API. It's a lot more powerful than this simple introduction video. You can really dive really deep into the library. Cool. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I see you next time.